Good morning, everyone. So my name is Guofei. So this is joint work with my student, Lei, Kevin, and Jialong, and also my colleague, Jeff. We come from Success Lab. As you can see, this is success. Huh? Oops, sorry. And today, so we're going to talk about some interesting new attack against SDN controller. So for basic background, so on the left side is a traditional network. As you can see, in old days, including the current, a lot of network devices. So you have network devices like switch or routers. They contain both the control plane and the data plane together. Okay. So this is called the problem. So think about if you want to manage devices from different vendors, their devices and the managed interface will be different and probably not be compatible. And what's worse is that if you want to add any new network function, even you want to, let's say, patch a no vulnerability inside the switch protocol, you're not able to do it. Okay? So that's the situation. So that's what you get what you get, and you don't love it. So this is similar to a situation, right? You think about old days, you have dump phones, you have all the vendors and provided the OS and apps. You are not able to install any new OS. So the new situation is that similar to the trend in the PC and the smartphone, right? Nowadays, everyone is using smartphones, which provide a nice operating system, and you can install any new apps you want. Okay, you can also program your own app to provide new functionality. So in the networking space, the revolution is happening, which is called software-defined networking. So the basic idea is to decouple the control plane from the data plane. So the control plane is mostly hardware devices. They are going to do what hardware is good at. But the intelligent part is done by the software. And there is a networking operating system called SDN controller is taking care of the logical control of all these network resources. And then on top of that, so a network operator or Euro or administrator can do any programming to design app, right? So this is a networking app. For example, you can add a new network protocol and a new network functionality or add patch to existing network protocol and things like that. So this enables a lot of innovations to the networking. So that's pretty nice. However, while SDN controller, which is considered as the brain of the network, so provide a lot of benefits, it also brings a new attack interface. In the past, we have present control plane saturation attack. So it's a new kind of denied service attack to the SDN space. And we also present a new attack called topology poisoning attack, which can potentially poison the network topology and provide a fake view to upper layer apps. And in this work today, I'm going to present a new attack called state manipulation attack. Okay, so which is also against the brain of the SDN space. Okay, the controller. So think about networking operating system and the program domain, right? It's not necessarily uncommon that we know risk condition that can happen. So in a networking operating system, obviously, it will manage a lot of network states. And these states will be updated by different modules, applications, and driven by different networking events, right? So this will cause a situation where you can see risk condition. And even worse is that these risk conditions can be harmful. Okay? There are two situations these risk conditions can happen. Even there's no adversary in normal operation of network because these network events are unpredictable. They are asynchronous and non-deterministic schedule of the operation of the apps inside controller. So this risk condition could happen, okay, even without adversary. But if an adversary knows there exists such harmful risk condition, and they could potentially try to inject some right network events to trigger the vulnerability, okay, which we call state manipulation attack in this paper. So first of all, give you a high-level idea what a harmful race condition look like. Don't be afraid about the detail of the code. So what you need to focus on is here there are several threads, okay, running here, okay, the left side and the right side, okay, and there are several events as you can see here. And modern SDN controllers are event-driven, network event-driven. So whenever there is a network event, okay, for example, if this event comes, so they will trigger some handling, okay, by some certain module, okay, in this thread. And this will do a lot of operation, and this including, of course, maybe referencing or updating some network states, right? In this case, is a switch, okay, this variable. So as you can see, this is very complicated. This may cross different threads, modules, and they will update. Here's update. So another event, in this case, this switch lead, can also trigger, okay, the operation, the management of the certain task, certain module. And this may also lead to the update or referencing to the same state. And when these happen in an unpredictable, okay, order, things could go bad. And in this case, okay, the app could crash and eventually cause the whole system, the SDN controller, in this case, the Floodlight, crash. Okay, and you can see the network operating system crash. So your brain crash, the network is terrible in this case. Okay, so now we can see. So of course we see the case. System can crash, right? This is obviously bad. But in some situation, so the attack can also cause the connection disruption. So that your data plan devices will lose connection to the controller. And it will cause some service disruption, right? Some certain service will not able to work. And in SDN domains, as you can see, so a lot of times you require some so-called service chain, which means you first want to do some execution control, and then you want to do some, let's say, tunneling and do some certain things, right? So if there's a state so that can be manipulated, they can potentially interfere the service chain, so block the certain service to be able to handle the event they don't want to handle. And there's also a possibility that it can leak some network privacy information, so as shown in the following example. So this is a load balancing app on top of the Floodlight. Okay, so let's say there is a client here. Okay, want to access a public server. Okay, in this case, let's say the public server address is 10.10.10. Okay, so the client sends a request to this server. And, of course, because the first this packet, when it arrives, the switch doesn't know how to handle in the SDN case. So it asks the controller. So the controller will handle that and see, so, oh, you want to access the server. So because it's load balancing, I want to use, let's say, a specific server replica to handle that. In this case, this server replica, okay, the IP address should be this, okay, which should not be disclosed to the others because this is internal. So it will update flow rule along the path so that the packets, okay, the flow from the client will be transparently translated, okay, without the client know that he is actually connecting to a server replica, not actually the previous service he is thinking about. Okay, so now the communication goes through. Okay, however, there is a race condition. So if attacker leverage and generate events in the past of any of these switch, okay, so this could cause the steps 3 and 4 not successful, and it end up that so the client can actually know the actual address, okay, IP address of the replica he is connecting to. So for example, so in this case, so if the attacker just try to ping, so this is the public service is supposed to, and it actually can see what is the actual IP address of the server replica is connected to. So this essentially leaks some of the information which should not happen. Okay, so that's the examples of attacks we try to talk about. Now let's talk about how do we discover this problem? What are the research problems we solve in this work? So there are essentially 2 problems we want to solve. First, given the controller and apps, right, how can we automatically detect those harmful race conditions in the SDN control plane? Second, once we detect these harmful risk risk conditions, how can we explore these conditions, okay? And by an external attacker. So to solve these problems, in this paper we present a tool or framework, a solution called CONGUARD. So for the first challenge, I will give you the basic idea, high-level idea, how we detect these harmful risk conditions. Okay? So before that, I just remind you, so risk condition in general is undesirable, okay, to detect that. And what we try to detect in this paper, the risk condition, is different from traditional data races, which care about to read and write certain memory variables, which can actually be well protected in classic operating system primitive like synchronizing, like mutex, and by lock. These can be well protected by. However, even so, in the case we see before, these are actually already protected, well protected by using mutex or locks. They still can have the vulnerability of the state manipulation attack. Okay, so just so our key insight. So the root cause of these harmful race conditions are by some race operations upon shared network variables that are not commutative. What does that mean? So that means if you mutate, okay, the scheduling order of these two operations, you will see a different state. Okay, happen. Although, so these operations can be well synchronized, for example, using a mutex lock and things like that. So with that observation, so we designed our CONGUARD, okay, as follows. As you can see, so in the latest, this is the workflow, high-level workflow. Okay. So the first step, so the input is the network controller, SDN controller, including the three mainstream SDN controller, as you can see, Floodlight, OpenDaylight, and ONOS. And we take this as input. We dynamically log the sequence of critical operations to model the operation of SDN control plane, okay, by instrumenting this control plane. So some example of the critical operations include the following. As you can see, so read variable, write variable, initialization application, terminate application, dispatch event, receive event by the handler, and the scheduling and these things like that. And after we get this trace, we are going to do analysis. Okay? We develop happens before relations to model the concurrency semantics of the SDN control plane. And then we utilize a graph-based approach to locate race operations. So, by the way, so happen before relation is a very common notion and technique used by the data race detection community. But we are using that in a different context, and we are using that to model the different race conditions in this paper. And some details are in the paper. I encourage you to read our paper for technical details. I'm not going to cover the details in the talk today. So we're going to do some high pre-processing in order to filter those, some, for example, redundant events and some irrelevant events not to our interest. And then, so we using that to model these operations. We use this operations to know use age to know these happens before relationship. And then, so we translate the problems to a reachability check in the graph to find some potentially risk operations. Okay. The reason I say potential risk operation is because these risk operations may or may not lead to the attacks that we are talking about in this paper. So in order to actually verify these risk operations can actually lead to the attack, so we use the final step, which we call adversary state racing. So at high level, what we do is we instrument the control logic, okay, to force an erroneous execution order. That is, the state update execute before the state reference and things like that. Okay, so to do that, we need to instrument the different branch, okay, inside that, and then input some waypoints, several waypoints in the trace in order to get the right execution order. Okay, So that's the high-level solution, how we detect those potentially harmful race conditions. So after we verify using our adversary state tracing, so then we can see how we can explore that by using an external attacker model. So the three models we use here is as follows. First of all, we do not assume or we do not need any compromised SDN controllers or apps or switch or protocol. Okay? So our type model does not assume we need to compromise them. Okay? So, and we also can assume the control channel can be well protected by, let's say, SSL LTS. So we only assume attackers can compromise some regular hosts or virtual machines. Okay? By using these compromised virtual machines or hosts inside an SDN network, so attacker can inject several network events. Okay? So the details are in the paper. So two of them are they require some in-band deployment of SDN, which means so the SDN switch utilizes the same physical link for both control plane and data plane, which is a cost-efficient and widely used deployment model. Okay, so this is an illustration how the attacker try to leverage or explore the harmful race condition. Okay, so as you can see here, so attacker here on the left side, and here is the SDN controller. So what the attacker do is try to inject a pair of events. So the first event try to trigger certain event. So this will trigger the SDN controller to handle this event. Okay, to handle this event. And the way how it handles is that typically they will check and then later they will reference. Now the attacker will try to immediately inject another event. Okay, try to what we call update event. Try to update the state operation on that. So later, when the SDN controller try to reference that, they will find a problem or error. And the attacker also try to probe the attack result, see if it is successful or not. Okay, so the attacker can keep trying these things and until the attacker finds it is successful. And to do that, of course, to increase the probability of success. So attacker try to leverage if the vulnerable window is large. So it will increase the probability of the attack success. Okay, so that's the high-level idea behind CONGUARD. How do we detect the harmful race condition and how do we explore that? Now, so let's see some evaluation results. So first of all, so some implementation. So we test all three major mainstream SDN controllers, okay, with the 33 apps. And to generate the SDN operation input, we use the Mininet and use this REST API script. And to instrument these controllers and to provide static analysis, we utilize ASM bytecode rewriting framework. And we have found 15 previously unknown harmful race conditions, and we verify them, and we contact the developers, and we help them to patch most of them. So some of the results, as you can see here, so here listed is different controllers that we did, and with different versions. And so this is the results, how the pre-processing can reduce the workload. And this is the result, so how many race operations we have detected after we check the DAG graph, okay? So, but before we do the adversary state racing. Okay, as you can see, so these are the race operations you can see here. And to evaluate the effectiveness of the happens before rules, okay? By the way, so the details of these happen before rules are in our papers. You can check that. So we use the example of in this floodlight. So before we apply this happen before rule, there are potentially 258 race operations, but after using rule, filter a lot of false alerts. So we end up with have only about 150 potential race operations. So, and we applied the adversary state racing to further on these race and then detect 15 harmful race conditions, verify 15 harmful race conditions. Okay, and many of them have serious impact. For example, they can crash the system or disrupt the service and things like that. And this table shows you Okay, so some details about the affected applications in different controllers and what are the correlated attack events that the attacker can potentially exploit. Okay, we list it in the order of this, as you can see. And some of these require inbound operations, but some doesn't require any inbound or outbound deployment. So because this is race condition, and obviously this is about it's not guaranteed to succeed. Okay, it's all about the possibility or probability of success. So we tried this if attacker try this, how many times can attacker get a successful exploitation? Now this shows some of the results. As you can see, so some of these bugs, for example, this one, the attacker can almost guarantee to succeed. Just try one and succeed. And for some of these, requires let's say 10 times or 100, close to 60 or 100 times. Which is reasonable because you can see, so to generate these events actually, it doesn't cost you a lot. It's pretty quick. Okay, so finally, let's talk about potential defense. Okay, so one defense is that we can provide better safety check. If you know there are potential state racing here, you can provide the better check, and so that guarantee the state doesn't change when you actually update or reference that. So which is actually not that easy. And so ideally, for network operations, you want deterministic execution in runtime. So that will guarantee such problem. However, to guarantee that the deterministic execution is extremely difficult, because of the asynchronous nature of these events. And another potential thing is that to defend against this attack, because attacker may try to launch multiple tries of this attack. So you may launch some anomaly detection to filter some potential attacks like this. But again, so to balance the trade-off between detection accuracy and the potential false positive is another challenge here. To conclude, in this work, we report a new attack. So attacker can potentially leverage the state manipulation to attack the brain of SDN networks. And we designed CONGUARD, a new framework, to automatically detect and exploit these harmful race conditions. And we evaluate CONGUARD in several mainstream SDN controllers and discover 15 previously unknown vulnerabilities. We have worked with developers to patch 12 of them already. And that's my talk. Thank you very much. I would like any of your questions or comments.
Thank you for the presentation. I'm Barry from Bell Labs. My question is, how does it compare to SDN Racer?
Okay. So the question is, how does our work compare with SDN Racer? For your knowledge, SDN Racer is another work with a concurrent work. So the major difference is that SDN Racer only focuses on races in data plane. Okay? As you can see, so all the examples we talk about is on the control plane and controller app, which the SDN controller app does not handle at all. And in paper, we actually compare with two relevant work. One is SDN Racer, and we find they are not able to locate any of the vulnerabilities we discover in this paper. And then we also compare with another traditional classic data race detector, RV predictor. And we find that that tool is also not able to detect any of the vulnerabilities reported in our work.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You seem to be starting your analysis from a dynamic trace. So,
yes.
But you have the code of the application. So why not using like a static analysis approach where you extract from the code the possible sequencing of this thing, and so that you can explore every possible state and not just the one that you observed in the dynamic execution?
So the problem is, so SDN controller these things are all event-driven. Without actual dynamic trace, if you only apply state analysis, you will not see the actual execution order of these things because the state analysis does not tell you which will execute first and which next. So you can only know possible these things by running actual environment, running these possible events and these things, and see how they are triggered with the order execution. That's the reason so why we first start with, as you can see, it's eliminate. We run typical operation, network operations, and these things, and we can see so how these events are typically ordered, and the operations are ordered. And from there, we can discover the information happens before, and use happen before to filter and find those potentially raised operations on the same state variable. Okay. But because of that, we also have the limitation. We were not able to discover all the possible risks because of the dynamic analysis. We cannot guarantee the coverage. So we also have that limitation. However, we do not have false positive because we have the adversary still racing to verify the actual.
Yeah, I'm Jeffrey Shea from Naval Postgraduate School. I want to follow up your question. You mentioned coverage. So
yes.
When you generate dynamic traces, you need a testbed, right?
Yes.
So how do you know the coverage? Have you actually looked into that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, okay. So for any testing, so the naturalist you will ask, so did we cover all the possible cases, right? Now, the absolute answer is of course no, right? No any coverage and dynamic execution have covered all the possible. However, so we do cover, okay, all the possible essential network events. That we can guarantee, right? So because we know so SDN controller, we know we studied this a lot. We know these all the things, and we know what are these events we are interested in. So we make sure, so we design this in the test, we cover all these events. Okay? That's what we can guarantee. However, we may not able to guarantee it will cover all the possible execution paths.
Right. Certain events may happen after a number of flows are accepted. Maybe that may trigger the race condition after a certain number of flows are accepted.
Yeah, so that's I answered Giovanni's question. So we may miss some. Okay, what I said. We may have found false negative because of dynamic nature. We're not able to cover some cases. However, as I said, so we care more about accuracy. Okay, so we don't have false positive.
Yeah. So I have another question. So I agree that it's very important to discover this risk condition and eliminate them. But you mentioned that the switch, you do not assume the switch is compromised.
Yes.
So a simple defense against the attack would be to make sure that switch the messages are authenticated. You cannot generate, cannot spoof messages from a switch.
No.
Would
So actually, if you look at this, we generate attacker can generate many events, and as you can see here, so only 2 are switch relevant. Some others are not switch relevant at all.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what about a switch join and leave?
Yeah.
So if you have a strong kind of check authentication, the host cannot generate those messages to trigger.
So actually, that's not true. Even there are strong authentication, as you can see, we already assume they can be strongly protected. However, attacker can still generate the switch leave events. For example, attacker can easily generate a TCP reset attack to force the connection reset. So that will generate a switch leave event. Okay, even without necessarily, even with strong authentication here, attacker can still generate events.
Okay.
I encourage you to look at our paper for some details. So all these events can be generated by the attacker, even with these assumptions.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.